I've never done this before live.
What's that?
Play balloons.
Oh, play balloons. Tower Defense Live. That's
Yeah.
true. Well, it'll be a lot of fun playing balloons while talking about economic crashes.
Ooh,
So that'll be lots of fun.
I didn't think it would happen again in my lifetime. Actually, wait. It's another cycle.
Yeah.
Another cycle of debt and printing and the money going to people in the banks,
Right.
political power who are already rich and powerful. And then everything's so expensive for us.
Do you just coughed? Do you have the corona?
Maybe. No. No.
She has the Wuhan cough.
You're gonna get me flagged. That's gonna be red flag for corona.
Yeah.
Just you wait.
Oh my goodness.
Do you suspect your neighbor has corona? We'll call this hotline.
That would be scary.
We'll immediately come and take them. Mandatory quarantine. 100 days.
100
Okay, I
days.
got really close to the
I know. I was like, wait a second. I can't hear you. Oh, hey, what's up, Dylan?
Hello.
What's up, David? What's up, Jupiter? So it looks like we have lots of people hanging out. Jupiter 5.
You're like Jupiter.
Jupiter.
That's a really funny accent.
It seems like as if everybody's home right now because there's so many people watching. I wonder why.
Wow, we got
Could there be any particular reason
or a bad time? Quarantine time.
Well, now that we have your government mandated attention,
yeah. Oh gosh.
We can get down to business. All right. So the Boogaloo is going to start. No,
I guess it turned into a meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice.
Thank
shirts.
you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're just here for, the usual. Yes, thank you everybody here. You are essential. So again, even if the government says you're not essential, we know you are essential. So don't worry, we got you.
Yeah. Definitely buy gold.
Oh. Yeah. Good luck on that, by the way, given that there's lots of buy orders for physical. Yeah.
Is anyone working while here like last time?
Oh, we're working right now. So that's at least 2 people. We're working it right now. As you can see, we got hustles right here. We got the Scott, the brand name, none of that off-brand stuff, right? Starting bids going 1,000 per roll. It's just one Trump check. So again, you won't even miss it.
Septic safe.
By the time it passes through your bank account, you can have a brand new Scott roll. We'll both sign it. You could just take it off and then put it on another roll, but still use the roll. Again, that's one. Oh, actually, this one's 1,100 sheets. Yes. So not 1,000, 1,100. So there you go.
I didn't know we were
it's
selling
just one Trump check. That's all it takes.
Me, I need these.
So
Trump check in 4 months is gonna be worth nothing. So I'm gonna keep that.
That's true.
Paper.
Yeah, this is gonna be worth
toilet paper.
2 Trump checks within about
pretty soon. This is
weeks.
gonna be considered non-essential. You just need a water. Just spray water in your butthole, and that's gonna be the government decree. I'm not even joking. It sounds nuts, but it's possible. It's possible.
I'm concerned right now though because since we have 2 rolls, I'm worried that Trump's order is going to affect us. Because he said there's no hoarding by executive orders.
No.
I don't know.
You don't need.
You know who needs 2 rolls?
You just use one at a time.
2 rolls.
In fact, you just need 2 sheets.
Yeah.
2 sheets a day.
If the CDC was in charge of your dispensary and your toilet paper rolls, there'd be like a 6-month waiting period to decide whether or not you could use 1 sheet. And then they'd have to check back with you after you go halfway in. And like, wait, hold on. We're not sure yet. We're not sure. Pull that sheet back out.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, you can put it back in, but next week.
You better not put a pistol grip or a bump stock on that.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you need a tax stamp.
Then the ATF will be like, oh, what's this? Is this an assault clip that you got right there? Is that one of them assault TP dispensers? Is that it? That's what they'd be like.
Yeah. Someone wipes their butt with Bitcoin.
In any case,
pretty soon it's gonna be. Can you spare some Bitcoin?
I mean,
we'll trade.
If you do a super chat though of 300 or more, we will send one of these to you. Absolutely, hands down.
and have you guys seen these articles? these articles where like some people in Congress have proposed bills that would create a digital currency, and like the only way you'd get your Trump check or whatever, your check from the government would be through this like digital wallet, and it would like require all member banks to provision that wallet.
It's hilarious because it's so ridiculous because most of the dollars are digital anyway, right?
Socialism.
Like they're just numbers, basically from fractional reserve banking. So it's kind of silly. But yeah, I mean, well, it's been debated. Apparently, they've been going at it for like 11 hours today, like debating it, which makes sense because it's so ridden with pork. The whole bill is there's so much crazy pork? In it. Yeah, now I'm not talking about the non-kosher stuff. I'm saying it has so many different monies for all different types of people. They have greased everybody's wheels in this bill, so they're fighting over the pork. It's pretty bad. But
someone said it's prime luau season.
Prime luau season. But yeah, I mean, it's scary out there, for a lot of people.
Shirt.
Yeah.
Prime luau season.
Yeah.
So I got the shirt.
Free money. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it ain't gonna be free money. That's for sure. I mean, just thinking about what the Federal Reserve is doing in terms of buying bad debts, lowering interest rates artificially, and doing all kinds of things, quantitative easing. It's that Trump check's going to go bye-bye very quick, and they're going to come back and get it too when they raise some taxes on you soon enough. So yeah, it's a nightmare out there. So sorry for all the people out there that have lost jobs thanks to the government, and small business owners are going under. That's going to stink for you. So yeah, it's going to be rough.
Wow.
But if you prepare now and you use your Trump checks right away to buy supplies, you may make it for a couple months. At least 2.
Yeah, but I thought it's not coming for like 4 months.
Get like a paper return possibly. They said it could take up to 4 months. And there's the issue that the post office might, of course, going out of resources now. So I mean, and there was money there too in the bill. That is, the bill is being debated, Senate bill about giving the post office, I don't know, it was like something crazy, 20 billion or something. So everything's going haywire. It's all going crazy. And of course, it's all because of the government. This is not coronavirus. Coronavirus did not go out and say, hey, you can't work. They didn't, there isn't a coronavirus out there with a gun saying, hey, business, you better shut down. It's all the government. Like that's it. The government's literally putting police out there, a National Guard, and shutting down businesses and telling people they can't go out or they'll arrest them or, charge them. I mean, it's just nuts. So
definitely. I'm more afraid of government virus.
Oh, yeah. The government, the state isn't virus is the worst one.
Deadliest one.
Yeah. I'll see it here. John says he lost a job after 6 years. I'll take what I can get to pay rent. Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. It's
wow.
I mean, the economic ignorance of the government is just knows no bounds, and especially all these epidemiologists too, because they're saying, oh, well, there's this possibility it could, rapidly spread and cause people to get sick and die. It's like, yeah, that's true, but have you done it compared to what? Have you done the how many people are going to die because of lack of goods and services being provided in a global sense? Have you done the economics of the people who are going to commit suicide because now they've lost their jobs, they've lost their 401ks and everything? Have you done all the economics of thinking through, oh, hey, if we ban people from, I don't know, being in school, what happens when all those kids in college come home to their grandparents and get them sick where they wouldn't have had contact before? Like, these people don't think about all the different big picture economics issues.
Are you sure some of them... I'm sure some of them in power do think of that. And maybe there might be some who think, and then they're like, oh, yes, this is the best way to screw everybody. I'm sure there is, or there are. And concentrate the wealth. Just follow the money. Who's going to get the bailouts, right? The banks.
It ain't you. You ain't getting the bailout, that's for sure.
They're going to get all of this money, the CEOs. I'm not saying CEOs in and of themselves are evil, but it's just the
crony,
bailouts.
right? It's the crony idea.
No one should be bailed out, and it's funded through theft, taxation. Like, that's the point.
Yeah.
So, and in any case, if you look at that, though, it's the people in power every time. They get the money first.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Before inflation,
Oh, yeah. They grease their own wheels. They make sure they're taken care of and they're padded. And, what's funny is there was this story about, the Congress is trying to up their salaries and stuff like that. And then people are like, no, they're not trying to up their salaries. But meanwhile, it's a $25 million appropriations bill for the chamber. That's a discretionary budget thing that they actually allocate for themselves and spend on themselves. So there's all these different manipulations that they're putting out there and, obfuscating with language about the nature of it. I mean, it's literally mostly cronyism, bailing out mostly banks, and literally just centralizing the power in government, and essentially in some cases kind of really heading toward that path of socialism with like the possibility of paying people $600 a week to not work. Like, because there's a debate over that, within Congress saying, oh, well, if you do this, a lot of people might be like, yeah, you know what, actually just going on unemployment is more lucrative in terms of the actual cash you get than any menial job you might be able to pick up in the meantime. So there's really a lot of bad incentives that they're about to force on everybody. Yeah. So on that note, what can you do to survive the coming apocalypse? Let's talk about it.
Number one,
play
some balloons. You'll learn a lot about tactics, strategy, where to put your towers, specialization, what monkeys to get, even economics. There's merchant monkeys.
There's monkeynomics.
Yeah, so basically it's just a game, like tower defense, but you just have these monkeys and they're so cute. And there's different kinds. And it's really cool. And then they're just up against balloons. And then it's all different kinds of balloons. And no, seriously though. And it's a good stress relief. I like playing games. I've played games most of my life. It's been a way to cope with the crazy shit happening in the world.
It's true though. It's funny because like during the first Great Depression, people played Monopoly. That's when that game arose. And now what are people doing now, right? What's the cheap thing? Oh, playing some type of game on your phone, right? Like either a freeware game that's like paid for by ads or something cheap like Balloons Tower Defense. It's really interesting to see what people are doing to cope in this government created crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. I hope most people, or at least can still order supplies. Like I have been able to find some things on Amazon, online stores for now.
Oh, that reminds me. I got to tell a story.
I would say also.
I told you, I literally was like, okay. Now, don't get me wrong. We are stocked on toilet paper, so don't worry. Our butts are wiped. But beyond that, I was like, okay, hey, I sent her. I'm like, here, go get this thing of toilet paper. Amazon has like 15 left of the Scott's 1000, right? She's busy in some, meetings, stuff like that. Soon enough, within like 30 minutes, refresh Amazon. It's gone. Just like that. Boom. So again, if you see TP, you just got to go for it. You can't wait. You can't wait. You just got to go for it. Wow. TP is literally booty gold in 2020.
Wow.
But even if you don't have TP, again, you could just, take a shower, or you can use your census card to wipe yourself. That is actually a very effective use of the census card.
Okay, that's a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
For definitely survival, I guess.
Absolutely.
Practice dry firing.
Practice dry firing.
Always check. Make sure.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's like, I'm going to practice dry firing, and then.
Yeah, but just be safe. Like, there are ways to check. Look up how to check. Down the magazine and down the barrel. And then just practice your aim, and then practice the essentials.
Right.
And yeah, it's really cool. Or if you have a toy model, 1911.
Yeah, this is not a real one. This is just a prop.
Yeah, it's just a prop.
It's not it doesn't even fire blanks or BBs.
Yeah, there's no mag.
Well, there is a mag. It's just a fake. Yeah. It's a fake one.
Yeah. So
trust me, we strapped
even this.
But elsewhere.
Still dry fire even more.
Well, even with like even with a toy gun or fake gun, you can definitely practice.
You can see if you're jerking
your sight, right? If you like pull and then you like go to shoot and then you like pull down, you're like, oh wait, I'm jerking. You know what I mean? You don't want to have that trigger jerk.
You don't want to
pull down. You want to practice pulling straight, equal light, right? Equal height, equal light. And yeah, I mean that's a good practice for when you're all cooped up at home. Dry fire practice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Someone said, do you think the virus will fizzle out or increase in an insane amount? Well, it depends on what the government is doing, like at that case, and how people are handling it. Like there's people, basic hygiene, and yeah, you could say social distancing or just by choice, like association. People already have a bias that they follow. It's unique and subjective of who's like dangerous or who's disgusting or whatever, and they just avoid. And if someone's like sick, you already should try to avoid breathing their air, because you know it can spread in the air. So you just, you know, so you can just practice that. Or stores with their own property or businesses can just say, hey, you look sick, can you just like not come in? We're trying to like not get other people sick in here, you know?
Well, I mean, to me, it's like it's a silly thought because first and foremost, I think that the number one thing that people need to wrap their heads around is that the virus already spread, right? Like the thing is, this is being spread around, like possibly early October, definitely November, December, January, February. All right, so it was already out of the bag. Like, so it's ridiculous. The fact is that tons of Americans already got it. People just don't know it, because obviously it wasn't being tested for,
And there
right?
was a lot of travel going on.
Right.
There was Chinese New Year, and there was tons of travel.
Right.
People from mainland China going all around the world.
Right. So I mean, it's kind of silly. It's out. The cat is completely out of the bag. Like it's already out there. The idea that it would be meaningfully shut down, I think, was already precluded by the FDA and CDC's stopping early testing, because literally there was people trying to test it, and that Dr. Chu woman in Seattle who had discovered it, that there was someone she was testing old kits who had it. And they said, oh, no, don't test. But then like, oh, wait, you found some? Okay, test a little more. And then they stopped, and then they went back. So basically, there's already private companies that were finding this and could have helped do something earlier, but the government, of course, stopped that from happening. Wow. Are you surprised? I'm not. So, you know, I mean, it's one of these things where the idea of like, oh, it's going to spread. It's like, folks, it's already out there. You're going to get it eventually, most people, at some point. You know what I mean? It's a virus. It's like the flu, right? I mean, you're going to eventually get it. Now, the question is what's your risk level, right? Your individual person, you know, risk level, everybody's different. If you're older, got bad immune system, got a pre-existing condition, higher chance of getting sick and dying. If you're younger, healthy, lower chance. That's just how it goes. And that's how it goes with most different kinds of sicknesses. You have a better chance if you're healthier, younger, worse chance slightly if you're older, not so healthy. You got cancer, you got leukemia, you got, you know, something already wrong with your lungs. Yeah, you're going to have problems. So the key is to live healthily.
During flu season, you already shouldn't like sneeze on an old person. Like, that'd be horrible.
Don't go and start sneezing on old people.
Or even hug an old person. Just avoid them. Just, you know, like I think the education part is, you know, if the government's going to do anything, like I wish it was more just like a not-for-profit, like whatever. It was just like doing services and saying it's a not-for-profit, you know. I think that's fine. And I think education is very effective. Just saying, hey, this is how things spread. And like, hey, like if you're old, you know, just you might want to stay home or be extra careful if you're out and wipe things and avoid people, you know?
Well, yeah. So. I mean, well, a lot of the issue here, right, is that the government in banning economic activity and preventing people from coming up with solutions and, you know, limiting people signaling prices completely screws everything over. Because if you have the ability to change prices with fluctuating demand, you have the incentive for different people who produce products where they have factories or other things where they're producing a different type of product, maybe similar, but, you know, again, something that may not be exactly what's needed. They could be incentivized to go and make the product that's needed. But if the price isn't there for them to change over their manufacturing, you know, methods, or to, you know, tweak some tools or add on another process in the chain to add on what you need to get, you know, maybe an N95 mask or whatever. If you don't have the prices there that incentivize people to take a risk and say, okay, you know what, for the next few months, we'll switch to this kind of product. Well, guess what? You lose out on all that economic activity and ability to address the problem. So the big problem here is that the government has prevented the economic activity and the incentives needed to address the problem in the first place, as has been shown the case through and through, which is, you know, it's been great because thanks to the internet and thanks to people being able to view things quickly, it's very obvious, and it's been much more obvious this time how the government has royally screwed people. You know what I mean? It was a little bit easier to hide it, you know, go back 100 years, 70 years, whatever. Now people are like, oh, we can see right away exactly how the government has screwed people directly. So,
yeah. Including having red tape to like building hospitals to, you know, offering tests for things, like all this approval that you need to get these check marks and signatures, you know, it's very impeding to progress and solutions that people naturally want, because people don't want corona, or they see people suffering from corona or have loved ones that died from it or suffered from it, and they're motivated to understand it and keep it from happening and spreading. Like, it's just people already do that and are volunteering their time to, do things from like 3D printing, breathing tubes,
respirator parts. Basically, they're through collaboration, through people doing 3D printing, people have been able to come up with cheap and effective replacement parts for different elements that you need in having respirators and things like that. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's the other thing is like, what would the market come up with in terms of different things you could have? Like, there's already masks and like N95. Apparently, that's like sold out or something. The masks, and yeah. So I just think the government, if anything, should just be educating, and then just like using its resources like that I wish they got just through voluntary means, like like people just donated, if anything, and just say, okay, hey, here's where you can be treated. Here's what we know, whatever. Like just education, but otherwise you don't shut people down and you just let people, human beings, individuals, like be incentivized to not spread it, and companies, employers to enforce their own rules, as has happened already, you know, and let the market basically decide the sets of rules or practices that should be done, but just on a decentralized basis based on private property. That's the way you minimize this violence that you see and these, massive job losses to people. So you can prevent that in a lot of ways. So if you just let people decide with their property and experiment. So, yeah.
Oh, right. And also, like, on the note, like, never been in a better time for like collaboration of information. I mean, thanks to the internet and people being able to share information, like, there's all kinds of people around the world who are collaborating and building different things, like 3D modeling different types of respirator devices, or using a type of, it's not true AI, but close, IBM's like AI and other types of machine learning things to like come up with different solutions that could be tested in terms of attacking the specific virus. So I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like we're in an age where we have the best chance that if people are free to come up with solutions and share knowledge, that it could be tackled. But the government's like, no, just go home, sit there, be sick, let the economy crash, be poor, and we'll throw you in a cage if you're homeless and you have no place to go. Because that literally happened. It was a story out of I think it was Orlando, like Orange County there, where a homeless 34-year-old was arrested by police for being out beyond a curfew. And it's like, wait, he's homeless. Where's he going home to? You know what I mean? They're like, we have facilities for that. They're like, oh, okay. So you're going to tell me that instead of taking him to the facility, you're going to arrest him and put him in a jail? Like, I mean, these people are literally violent psychopaths. I mean, all the people who are in the state right now, by and large, literally could die tomorrow and the world would be better off because they are that sick. So it's, I mean, it's really the people who are currently in those positions of power are some of the most evil people you can imagine.
Who killed Jeffrey Epstein?
Right. I mean, it's like, did people forget that the people saying, "Here's our solution for
they buried that story
coronavirus"
so quick? And Project Veritas, like, I love the work they're doing, but they're just like, all right, so here's a leaked tape of a hot mic moment with Amy Robach or whatever from ABC News, and they're like, no, let's not comment about it.
Yeah.
They still cover it up, and then conveniently they find, and whatever, they are scouring for any event that they can run across all the headlines in America and just totally try to get as many people, the mass consciousness, if you will, to like follow a certain thing and get behind and accept mass violence or taxation, bailouts, theft, gun control, like whatever it is. So it just seems, whether it's orchestrated by the, false flag conspiracies, or if it really is just a tragic event that happened, but they just, with their focus of what they report on, what they choose to report on, selective reporting, they just focus and elevate those stories that they can paint this narrative of and say, okay, this is every day, this is all around the world, is horrible, everywhere. And they hide things like defensive gun use or like positive things that happen, or just people being empowered, individuals being empowered, voluntary acts of service, so yeah.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and it's crazy to think about that. These same people who are saying, "Oh, here's what you need to do. We're here to help you." Like 2 seconds ago, weren't these like the group of pedophiles from Jeffrey Epstein's island who were literally hiding each other's, murders and acts of rape against children? I mean, did people just forget that? And then you have like Weinstein, right? He literally was put into a prison, and then he got supposedly coronavirus. I'm like, did the Clintons' methods evolve or something?
Sure.
They're like, oh, why didn't we think of this before? Why we should just use the virus
You're connecting it all
on Jeffrey
for me.
Epstein? That we should we just should have coronavirus him. It would have been so much easier.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it said quarantine. Lol, I'm homeless specifically because I don't want to be locked in. Yeah. A $200,000 coffin does not appeal to me. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So it really is nuts. And then you have the police potentially. I mean, at least I haven't seen too much yet, but supposedly people are getting letters to say whether you're essential or non-essential. It's like, this is literally government central planning of who is essential versus non-essential. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, they have no concept of like interdependency of different things. Like, you can't just say, oh, we want these businesses open, but not these. And then ignore the fact that there could be dependence between those in terms of, funding or resources or things they need to, get to the point of having what they call an essential business. Yeah. So, yeah.
$200,000 coffin made me think this long train of thought.
Do it. Go it.
I was like,
we have all the time in the world. Everyone's home.
That's a good point. I don't really want to be forced to pay property taxes. And then I was like, what about a lifestyle that some people live where they just like do Airbnbs or they stay in hotels and they just travel and they're just nomads, and a lot of them digital nomads, and make a living off the internet, just trading on the internet somehow, whether they're skills or something. So yeah.
Wait, what?
Anyway, that was my long train of thought about how like, that's another lifestyle possibility.
Oh yeah.
Would I do it? Anyway.
Virtual reality from home. That was the other thing too. I was like, I wonder if this would like
push reality.
People be like, what if we want to create virtual reality and everybody just works digitally with avatars and like machines operate, and then you like deliver things with like drones and stuff. It'd be interesting, but I don't think that's going to be able to happen anytime soon if people can't actually work toward that end, though, because it'd be kind of hard to do all that production to get to that point. But and speaking of drones, right, I hear that California, supposedly they have drones being rolled out to monitor for people going out in groups.
Oh.
I mean, that's some 1984 stuff right there.
Wow.
I mean, that's crazy, right? Like, imagine seeing drones out, like trying to see, oh, do you have 10 people with you? Or is that 9? Wait. And you're like, but wait, that's my whole family. We're here together.
Again, whether or not it was orchestrated by some government, our government, I don't know, or it really just was this event, but that they helped, in my opinion, I think for sure to exacerbate, because there was the stifling of information or the hindrances to testing of the virus, of early testing. So, whether or not that happened, they sure are seizing on the opportunity to implement all of these draconian measures, printing money, lining their pockets, and it's not going to go away. Like, it's not going to be like, all right, let's get to Easter, hopefully, right? That's the last thing. It can change, that Trump said. It can change again. That's just the latest thing. Like, by Easter, do you think that it will all be rolled back? And apparently in one of the bills, they want, Congress wants to increase their salaries again.
We were saying before they had a $25 million allocation to the chambers. So basically they're like, well, it's not salaries directly. That's fake news. It's like, they're putting money appropriated for themselves to use for themselves later that they're going to, address. Okay. Yeah. Get out of here. It's crazy. And this, the closures too, right? Like, I mean, it's going state by state. We have Colorado coming through just now. Oh, and we heard Cheesecake Factory tells landlords it won't be able to pay rent on April 1st. So the Cheesecake Factory is going down. We have Waffle Houses going out. So I heard it was before it was like over 300, then it was over 400 Waffle Houses. And something I learned was that there's like a Waffle House factor that's actually used in measuring damage.
Yeah. that FEMA used to
Right.
measure hurricane impact, and like
How many Waffle Houses?
if it's
do
to
we have?
go, it's like it's okay, things are kind of bad, but it's not like terrible. But if Waffle Houses are closed, things are bad. So
I know,
anyway,
right?
that's what they're saying.
She. Yeah, I mean, and now we have Idaho closing.
Wait, what? Idaho?
No, Idaho. The Pentagon, right? They said all overseas U.S. forces movement, which I mean, it just means they're all going to get sick anyway because they're all in close quarters by and large, unless you're in a really nice resort like in Japan, at the Okinawa base.
Wow, that's crazy.
Let's see, we have Minnesota's closing up. It's pretty wild. It's just going to keep coming to a head. Florida man can't be closed up, at least not yet. They can't control Florida man, but there are, I think, some cities or counties that are closed and things like that. And that's the other thing too, is like even where states where the governors didn't, call a closure of anything, there's still localities that are calling closures and stuff. So, and then they're sending out their local county cops or city cops to go and like tell store owners, hey, you better close up or we'll, rape you. So they're raping everybody out here.
Yeah, so they can't stop Florida man, you say?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, at least the governor there didn't call for a complete, lock-in kind of idea. But and then Prince Charles, he got coronavirus. So hey, the evil kings and queens still around getting some coronavirus. So there's a couple broken windows that actually lead to better things. So. That's true. He's old. And then, negative rates are coming into U.S. 1 month, 3 months Treasury. So people ain't going to be making money on them bonds. Oh, here, this is crazy, right? Los Angeles shut off water and power for non-essential businesses.
Oh, no.
If they don't close, right? So now they're threatening to cut off their stuff.
Hey, that's what shows you the centralization. Their monopoly will be weaponized against you.
Yep.
Depending on who seizes power. Like, if you think communists... Okay, most people have a type of statism even they don't like. You know what I mean? Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, when it's on your neck and it's on your face.
Like most people, like some people are like, okay, I hate, communists and socialists. Some are like, I just hate authoritarians. I don't know. They're versions of them, but yeah, they just have their own things that they think is like too far. But just imagine if you have that apparatus all the time and you say and you tell everyone and you say this is how everyone should think, that these people, if you're in the government, have these rights to steal, to print money, to counterfeit, to set whatever rules they want and exempt themselves, then you're gonna eventually just always have this risk that someone that you even find extremely evil and violent and horrible will seize that power. And now that you've had that apparatus and most people go along with it, or just by sheer violence and the monopoly, of resources and force that they've acquired, they just maintain their rule. So, it's for me, it's like another big lesson in why you don't want to have this coercive monopoly on force. You don't have that as part of the human psychology in any way, to have people accept that it's okay for them to be ruled and stolen from and pushed around and locked up or killed, and coerced, because it's for their safety or it's for the greater good. Like, no, that's part of a very unhealthy, dysfunctional human psychology. And that should not be how, that should not be the philosophy we advocate for people. Is these exceptions and moral rules. If you say we're all humans, then none of us have different sets of morality. None of us, if you say stealing is wrong, none of us, just because we join the government, like suddenly it's okay. Like, no, it's just not okay. Let's just not make exceptions here. So that's just the point. And I hope that this crises, coronavirus and government pandemics all around the world, show people the nature of government and why government like if you define it as just rules, that can all be done on a voluntary property rights basis. There's no need for coercion, and it's just moral insanity to keep justifying coercion, uh, against some humans by some people, than not, and creating these false divisions amongst humanity. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Whoa, a super sticker. What's that?
I don't know what a super sticker is, but thank you,
Huh.
Robert, for the super sticker.
Thanks, Robert.
Appreciate it.
Quarantine days. Do you guys wake up and go, day 5 of the quarantine? Do you do that, or is that just me?
Well, speaking of what you're saying with the tyranny and resisting it, there's also a bill that definitely should be watched closely here called HR 5717. Farmers Policy Coalition put out a listserv on it, and of course, it's gotten quite a bit of attention. But this bill would basically create a nationwide gun registry, ban almost all semi-automatic rifles, institute a federal magazine ban, implement nationwide red flag gun confiscation, tax guns at 30%, ammo at 50%, ban people under 21 from exercising their Second Amendment rights, ration guns would make it illegal to purchase more than one firearm in a 30-day period, force safe storage requirements of gun owners, ban home builds, ban suppressors, force FFLs, suspend mass amounts of money, comply with new measures, expand gun-free zones, and more than we could possibly list, as I said, in that space. So it seems like a really bad bill that's trying to be slipped through in the midst of everything else.
Yeah.
So just, keep your eyes and ears on it. I'll just put this in the comments because it's just too important to not HR, or actually I'll put the link.
What are your thoughts as a lawyer and someone who knows, understands government and laws being passed? What do you think is the point of people following these bills if they're not the ones who vote on them or anything? Like, what do you think of, like, oh, okay, call your representatives, like that whole thing, like go call your senators, your representatives.
That's always a first line of defense in terms of the concept that obviously those people in government at some level do care about their re-election chances. So to the extent that they see any major pushback that they think would meaningfully jeopardize their seat, they will give it a listen. So, I mean, I do think that there is something to be said about trying to do that kind of messaging. Is that going to ultimately work? I don't know.
Twitter works, right? Twitter storms.
Twitter could be a thing,
just do Twitter
right?
storms.
Getting people aware. It's just putting pressure on. Like, it's just a first kind of wave. It does, it does work in the political realms. The idea of just wanting to let people know who are there. Hey, there's enough people here to get you out of office.
Yeah, the key is a lot of people. You need that,
right?
And that can be the most difficult part, is just having coordinated people voicing their opinion. Like I said, Twitter storm, like a digital way, but there's different ways.
Yeah, I gotta tell you though, if that bill were to theoretically go through, I don't think it's likely, just because it is so radical. There'd be a lot of pushback. But again, we're in some radical times, folks. The government's slowly trying to implement all kinds of crazy stuff. So I mean, I'm not putting anything past them. I mean, I could see that sparking like genuine like bloodshed stuff. Like, I mean, if that kind of law were to pass, I mean, it's so insane. It, as FEC said, it's like one of the worst gun bills they've ever seen in like the modern era. So if something like that passed, there's going to be some people dying. That's for sure. It's going to be all the names who sign on that one going to be going missing. That's for sure. Yeah. Because that's like literally a total wholesale, like basically like banning guns completely kind of thing almost. Like it's pretty bad. So
I'd say, I don't know about the offense, but at the very least, get ready to defend. And I would say as much as possible now, especially, a lot of people have been prepping. So there's that. But for some, they're just kind of starting to think about this. So one of the things is like, find ways to find fellow libertarians, Second Amendment supporters, look for two-way groups around, or even Libertarian Party. I mean, just anything liberty related, just where you could find people who want and care about freedom and liberty, even in their different levels of statism to anarchist, like still, and get to know these people, look for virtue, because you can be someone who's like a little status and technically virtuous, like, in that you're honest, you stick to your word, and you're not gonna like initiate violence on somebody. So, and you can be friends with people, like that.
Mm.
So, but yeah, just like I think that's a very good thing that you could do if you're somebody who isn't ready to just or able to just like move, if you're in a very status place or something.
Well, if you're locked in,
That
moving can be tough.
hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's that. Like depending where you are.
Yeah.
So,
It's getting hot out there.
I think what this kind of environment now, it's I was listening to John Bush. We had an interview with him on the conscious resistance, and he was talking about the quote sheltered in economy, as he called it. And I just thought it was interesting. I mean, what that means is just like this is just the current environment we're in. It's almost like wartime,
Worse though, as Tom Woods just said
yeah.
recently, and I agree. He's like, it's hard to think of something that's been this drastic in recent history. He said compared to like maybe World War II, they like restructured industries for war efforts, but it didn't put people out of work. It just shifted where people worked. This is straight up like making people not work. This is like practically unprecedented in terms of this scale. Yikes.
Yeah, so like businesses and whole industries are just stopped for a week, 2 weeks, 3, 4,
Oh yeah.
When's it gonna end? I don't know. Like there's all these renewal clauses. So at the end of all these bills. So yeah, okay, so that's interesting. There's that. And so much crazy stuff was happening before Corona. There was all these things happening in China and Hong Kong between all that and America and Julian Assange and just everything. That's horrible.
Right. It is.
I mean, what's happening to them, not them. I said Julian Assange, and then yeah, but it's
all horrible.
And yeah, all the injustices happening all around the world. Yellow vest protests in France. Like, what happened to that? Like, so many things happen. Like, it seemed like every month, several crazy for the people involved, traumatizing events. Like, just over and over. And what's frustrating is government. Jack has laughed at this before, but
I will laugh again.
It's
if
like
it's funny.
government cuts off your legs. They just remind me of the mobster movies that I saw growing up. Like there's that mobster who comes and he's like, "Hey, what do you got here?" Like,
what do you got here?
Come over here, she. But it's my best impression. But just kidding, I could do it better. But yeah, and they just come in and they're like, "Well, if you don't give me money, I'll just break your legs."
That's literally what's happening right now.
Like, get a bat and they like break your legs. They're like, ah. And okay, that's not literally what's happening, but in a lot of ways, like through the inflation tax, it's through these very insidious means, or carrying out violence against other people in other countries in your name, supposedly, right? Because every time people talk about governments, they're like, China, America, the Americans, the Canadians, the French. They never say the French government or the U.S. government, rarely. And it's just interesting. Or they say Russia, and it's so collectivist. Or it just always like groups that race with the government.
It's like they use synecdoche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, for those that don't know,
which is when you use a part of something to describe the whole kind of thing, like Cleveland won, but it's not really Cleveland. It's like the baseball team. Indeed.
Right.
Oh, and then Robert here says Idaho issued a 21-day stay-at-home order today, right? Oh my goodness. Like, that's crazy, right? 21 days of people being out of work.
That's 3 weeks.
Woo!
And guess what they're doing that whole time? Every day they're acting so fast. They're like, we're going to get a bill. We're going to get a bill. What are they doing? Do they just drink coffee and they're like, all right, here's another bill. All right, add this provision.
Yeah.
All the monies goes to be like, I don't know. Like, seriously, but just at the rate they pump out these freaking bills
Right.
that are just, you know, uh, I'm an anarchist voluntarist, but it's like, can we just at least have a constitutional republic? Can we just start there?
I think we had it, and that's how we got here. That's the problem.
Oh.
You need greater chains than that. Greater chains. You need a cultural revolution
Yeah.
of people who love liberty and property rights and non-initiation of force.
Ooh, that was going to be one of my questions. What is the cures for or remedies for the status virus?
Well,
First of all, what is the status virus?
The status virus is the idea that you think it's right for a small group of people to unilaterally claim to own all pre-existing bodies and properties, that just some small group of people can just by decree claim to own you and own your property, that's already there. That's what it is. And it's pretty scary. It's one of the most dangerous superstitions you can possibly imagine, as Larkin Rose says.
Larkin Rose. Whoa.
Oh, Larkin Rose. Yeah. But oh, Larkin Rose.
Do you like saying his name?
He's got a good name. It's a good one. But yeah, so speaking of all that poverty, there's going to be a lot more now that we know, thanks to Robert here, talking about the Idahoans. So Idaho's. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine how long that unemployment line's going to be? Like already California had, what I heard, like a million applicants in 2 weeks. I mean, it's just astronomical. From what I've seen already in the data, it's higher right now than the .com and the housing crisis applications for unemployment. It's higher than both of those in terms of sheer numbers. And I think soon enough, even if you adjust for population differences in terms of total population, I think it's going to be higher, maybe days, maybe a week at most, higher than both of those crashes already. So buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah. I just hope there are at least some states, I hope there's no federal stay in place order. I hope that different states, make different extreme choices. And as you've already seen, the one extreme of, stay inside. But then there are those that I think would follow other models of other countries that have been through it, like South Korea and Taiwan. Like, they didn't just shut down all businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
They just educated. They spent a lot actually on education. They're like, wash your hands. And wear these masks. And they made little cutesy anime in Taiwan. It's just, I don't know. And
that is the one silver lining, I will say.
But I'm just saying,
it's all people washing
to
their
show
hands.
experimentation in the U.S. at least. Can we just not have a federal decree? I mean, it's annoying with the states, and I feel bad for the people there. But before it has the ripple effect of, and at least if you're in one state that's shelter in place, but the states around you aren't, maybe you can travel out real quick or flee real quick or stay in a hotel. I don't know if you
Probably
can,
not.
But okay. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, to minimize, if there could just be other states, governments that choose to be let's just follow a different. But we'll see.
New Yorkers were fleeing to Florida. Once they heard that this order was going to come out with Cuomo, they're like, oh yeah, we're getting out of here, we're going to Florida. But then the governor of Florida is like, okay, New Yorkers, don't come here. If you do, 14-day quarantine. I'm like, wow, that's actually, maybe that's what people need, actually, is the rest of the United States needs a quarantine from people coming out of California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Hawaii, maybe a couple of those little small New England states that are, super crazy statist. Maybe that's just what we really need. It's just a quarantine of those, right?
Well, there's a lot of New Yorkers we know now that are super libertarian.
Oh my goodness.
All right, you can stay, but not you. Not you, New Yorker.
It's hilarious. But that's the funny thing, is you can't stop free people from moving and stuff like that and traveling, this or that.
So the point is, how do you minimize your own risk?
Right.
So you learn about transmission, you avoid people, right? You look for signs that someone's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't want to risk it at all, you stay inside if you have the luxury. But some people don't have the choice. Some people value in the moment getting that paycheck or at the end of the week or 2 weeks or whatever more than the risk to their health of contracting coronavirus for a lot of people. They're in that position. So who are these people to take away that person's freedom to decide for themselves how they want to live? And this is taboo when it shouldn't be, or how to die in some cases, whatever. Like, I mean, to the extreme, but just in that case, it's just like, okay, contract coronavirus and there's different risks. Like, okay, if you're younger, if you're like 22, like, are you really going to be like, oh, I don't want to get the flu, compared to I live paycheck to paycheck paying off my student loans. So I'm just going to like, not work for 3 weeks and hope my job is still there. Like, it's not going to be, so that's funny. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's like individualism, and then we're like, goodbye. Goodbye. All right.
It is. It's happy.
It is very happy. So, in any case, we are excited to see what happens, though, because now all of our apocalyptic dreams
I'm reluctant,
and fantasies come to life.
Yeah. It's a weird thrill of like horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a thrilling, horrible roller coaster. And when you survive one, you're like, ooh, all right. No, seriously. It's yeah. But, there's a lot of things. The hope is that I think people can adapt. A lot of people can adapt to different situations. So I don't know what it will take. As you were talking about, some people fleeing states as soon as they could. Some people probably got wind of it early. I don't know.
I did.
But yeah. And some people are stocked up and just ready to stay inside, or they have a way to work from home and transition their business. Or if you're like a restaurant, they focus on like, okay, how do I do Uber Eats? And they come to my house. Like, it would, like that would be cool to see this, as some agorists call it, counter economics, like this counter economy, just like refusing to, be tied to what the rulers, like the state, like says we can or can't trade with, what we can or can't consume or produce or have or whatever. And they're just humans like us, but it's like the emperor with no clothes, it's just like these people just purport to be so much more superior than all of us. And all this talk about racism, it's like you have the true, superiority, whether it's by race or whatever, racist or anything, in power now. Like, that's where the attention should be, on the people who have the most power and are some of the sickest people in the world, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's
so yeah, anyway, research during this.
Research. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to deal with something that's such a widespread thing. I'm not talking about the virus. I'm talking about the government. With so many different places trying to clamp down, it's very hard for people to. You want me over this? Oh. It's very hard for people to meaningfully escape it when so many different types of governments are out there trying to control people and monitor them, and basically 1984 the whole place. That's my greatest concern, is that when you look at what's actually taking place in terms of what's essentially a suspension of the Constitution at this point, and I'm not saying Constitution like, oh, that's all gravy and that's what gives you rights. I'm just saying, just from a legal perspective of what these people supposedly say they're upholding. I mean, they're literally banning people from assembly, right? Freedom of assembly is this First Amendment thing. Wait a second, you're banning people assembling. That's literally
and
a
you're
suspension
controlling
of the First
how
Amendment.
many. So guess what? Protests. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be protests at all. They could do the most horrible things during this lockdown, and they say, hey, we're trying to prevent corona. I know that we're trying to pass this crazy bill, like stimulus bill, or like another infringement on your liberty, or like gun control, like, but hey, you can't protest right now because of corona. Like, I can totally see that weaponized for that.
I would like to see that, actually. Like, if people would actually get together and do a protest that's over 10 people or something in one of those places where that's banned, I would be really curious to see if there could be a really good successful lawsuit come out of that suing the government
Seriously.
on the most highest strict scrutiny level activity, which is pure political speech, you know, protesting and having signs that say vote or petition, which are the key words to, like, if you really want to, like, have the absolute strictest of strict scrutiny from the Supreme Court, you could possibly have a government action. And they'd have to come up with a compelling government interest and narrowly tailored means. But I don't think so. I don't know if that would hold up if they could say, oh, we had 11 people and you had 10 people and we had a protest on, you know, some corner. That's I don't know, but I hope someone sues over it. I know there are people already suing over the gun stuff with all the gun stores being suspended. I know in Pennsylvania there was an issue there, and then the governor had to back off because it's a lawsuit, and the justices said no, you can't shut down the gun stores. But
Wow, that lawsuit, man, preventing some government action, even just in that small case. But I'm just,
yeah,
so interesting.
it is really interesting. And let's see right here. It says, George says, being a truck driver, business and money is good, but what good is money when you're never home and places are closed? Really less places are catering truck drivers. They're smart.
Oh, cool.
I know,
Thank
right?
you, George.
Yes, thank you for your service. See, that's a real service right there. Someone who's actually out there providing value, bringing much needed goods to
Wow.
people. George is out there helping people out, unlike the government. And it's rough to, you know, I actually just read an article just recently that they were truck drivers. They're working so hard and they, you know, they're just exhausted. They need a place to sleep. They had to just stop on the side of certain residential areas in New York, and officers were ticketing them and trying to tow their trucks because these people are working like literally day in, day out, trying to get stuff across America so that people can restock and, you know, get supplies. And these, you know, police officers are literally ticketing these people, not hurting anybody. They're just parked on the side of the road. They're in the middle of the night. No one's, you know, they're blocking traffic. They're just trying to get a little bit of sleep just so they can keep trucking. I mean, these people are sick. You know what I mean? The people who are actually productive, like George here, it's really disgusting what, you know, this kind of disdain for the people that actually are sustaining people's ability to live, like providing the needed food, medical devices, you know, all those different things that you need to just, you know, take care of yourself. They're stopping the production of what makes humans flourish. And that's what's, I think, to me, most terrifying. So thank you, George.
Oh, Sway Ocean. The government is, and yeah, thank you, George. George Washington. No, I'm just kidding. The government is an organized criminal faction that is guilty of treason and crimes against humanity. I agree.
Of
Sway
course,
Ocean, and welcome.
Yes, and welcome back, Sway. And yeah, so, you know, with these kind of effects and you know, butterfly effects, actually, I wanted to talk too about how that affects things that, you know, we're doing because, for example, like with the Red Flag reality film stuff that we were working on, that was really interesting. How we were concerned about how that might affect us with all the things we're trying to do with events. The first thing it definitely affected us on is just planning what we were going to do for our range event, because obviously, like, all of Vegas Strip's closed, right? And a lot of the places won't even book because they don't know what's going to happen when. So nobody wants to, you know, talk yet about the future because they're not sure. So, you know, we got to wait and actually find out what's going to happen with that. But fortunately enough, we were able to book our studio early in advance and actually go and shoot the Real Dangerous Red Flag Laws video. So we got one of those videos done. And then David, of course, is awesome and he's kicking butt. He's actually able to shoot the dramatic shorts on his end and take care of that, you know, elsewhere, despite all these different bans. But he was concerned too about what might happen. But we were able to make it all work.
That was not planned.
Yeah.
I certainly wasn't part of, if it was planned, Corona spreading and the government shutdowns. So, gosh.
Yeah. So, another good thing to talk about here too is some people will say, "Oh, libertarians, they can't deal with a pandemic, or they don't have a response to like this kind of stuff." It's literally, it's got to be the most ignorant comment you could possibly make about this topic. And we can,
because they're implying central planning again, and
right?
A central solution. It's like, no, libertarians don't have a single solution. They have agreement on principles, but they don't agree on fashion or like single solutions. Healthcare, they don't purport to know like what the proper, you know, it's specifically about respecting property rights.
Right. And beyond that, the specifics about taking care of stuff, right? Like, for example, very specifically in this case, like, it was the government that stopped private companies from being able to make the testing kits. You do realize that, right? Like, libertarians, dude, literally the government stopped private companies from making testing kits and testing. Like the government stopped the private companies. All right. I got to say that like 10 times. The government stopped the private companies. Okay. So if you don't understand that basic concept, you have no clue about anything as relates to the government and the nature of markets. All right. So you got to pull your head out of your behind if you don't understand that concept. First and foremost, you have to understand the government stopped the solution. That's an empirical, demonstrable fact.
And
so going to
if you break it down into terms, what you're talking about is government versus people, like free people, is you just say, okay, you're saying that you need a group of people with a monopoly on violence and force. That's it. And that's the only way humanity or people will be able to get through something, and that they know more than everyone who's free to choose what to do with their own property. Otherwise, like you're purporting that the small group of people know so much more than people who have their own individual choices, and free will and incentives to take care of themselves and survive. And they value different goods and services subjectively different. So there's that as well. And that's why you can't have central planning. And that's what has gotten us into this mess of these shortages, these price controls, because they demonize businesses for providing a service such as, hey, I own all this property. I'm the one who bought like a gajillion toilet paper rolls when I don't even need it, but I bought it in bulk from this company because they gave me a discount price, and I had a ton of money to do so that I saved or inherited or whatever. And that's totally right, by them. And they're providing a service by increasing the price if they see a sudden spike in demand of toilet paper rolls, for example. And instead, like, it's demonized by statist, socialist, communists in America, especially by the mainstream media and the government here. Like, they just demonize businesses still, Republican and Democrats, or reverse, Democrats and Republicans. They both demonize businesses, and they're both very socialist. Both politicians in those parties,
right.
Most of them.
And to speak to specifics of the actual like concepts as relates to providing solutions to the market, right? So first and foremost, it's important to realize that when it comes to tackling anything where it's like, okay, something could spread across many people, you need to be able to share as much information as possible, as fast as possible, and develop solutions as quickly as possible. So when the government literally bans people from coming up with solutions, puts a whole bunch of regulatory tape, it makes it very hard for that to happen in the first place. But we can see examples very clearly when there isn't that red tape, how fast things can get done. Like the Chinese government had hospitals built in 10 days, right? And sometimes faster. How'd they do it? It wasn't because they had some magical thing because of the government. They literally use prefabs, and they don't have to ask permission because it's the CCP. They just make it. Like there's no like, oh, we have to ask, the CCP level 2 government. No, they're the government. They just say, oh, okay, yeah, we're making this. So, I mean, the idea that the technology is there in order to make makeshift hospitals or any type of, facilities is absolutely ludicrous. In addition, Carnival Cruise Lines, they offered their ships as temporary bays as well for people. And when it comes to the actual like testing kits, the government's testing kits that they were working on at the CDC actually were failing. They were not working, and they were preventing other companies from coming up with other alternatives that they can work and test, especially for home kits. So, I mean, when you actually get down to the nitty gritty of the actual actors and actions, it really starts to paint a picture of just how much the government screws everything over. And then in addition to that, there's a certificate of need that happens in many states where a hospital literally cannot be built unless another hospital or the hospitals in the area say they need it. So basically there's a cronyism in measure where hospitals that pre-exist get to say, oh, no hospitals get to be built to keep out competition. And this didn't exist in places like South Korea, where they were able to very quickly come with test kits within about 3 weeks and, have whatever facilities they needed and targeted the people who are actually sick and work with them. So, I mean, when you
say targeted, that still freaks me out, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, they targeted as in they had targeted treatment. They said, oh, this person's actually sick. Okay, who did you contact with last? Okay, let's contact those people and say, hey, by the way, they had coronavirus. Come in, we'll test you. Here's some medicine, right? I mean, it's in other words, it's targeted medicine. Not, I'm not saying targeted like it wasn't like, the CCP's version, which is targeted like we're gonna, seal you in your house, kill you, shoot you in the head, which literally happened.
So horrible.
So it's definitely crazy.
Really hurts.
So basically, when you actually get down to the brass tacks, the reality is that any place where the government has barriers to entry and restrictions, you see a lag in response, and especially in places where they had price gouging laws. Because what happens is, again, if the government says you can't charge higher prices within a certain percentage of your past 6 months of sale, then you basically make it so that no other business is incentivized to make that product. Why? Because if they can't change the prices higher, there's no incentive for a business to retool their machines or retool their factory or add another process in the production facility to then go and change their direction, their product making, right? Maybe add a little thing so they actually have official, N95 masks. Maybe take their paper making stuff and instead turn it toward toilet paper instead of making, loose leaf paper or something, whatever it is. There's no incentive if they don't have the prices there, in order to say, oh, okay, well, it's worth it at this price point for us to spend a little bit of time and money to retool.
Suddenly toilet paper making one roll costs will result in a much higher return than what I'm currently processing with, wood. I don't know. I don't know. But however you make toilet paper.
You got to mulch up a bunch of trees. You got to bleach it.
Okay. There you go. But I'm just saying, you're right. That's part of the beauty of what people call price gouging and what status have demonized or socialist, you could say, is actually a service. And it sends a signal to the market that, hey, you need to conserve. This is a scarce good right now, because you're signaling to everybody that this is in high demand, or you can just look and compare this certain vendor and most others, and you can see oh, for some reason this vendor has it at $200 when it's only $10. What, then that's an example of just one person hiking it up, right? But that's in their freedom too, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so it's basically, in the end, it doesn't matter how crazy and exorbitant someone charges if it's their own property, first of all, and secondly, if people are free to compete otherwise, then there's no problem. Then you're not forced to buy a toilet paper roll at $200 or whatever. You can just compete with them, figure out how to do it yourself, because at that price, maybe you can figure out how to just make it for less than $200 a roll. I don't know. That's what these prices do, and people's individual choices with their own property do. They create different incentives, and they also, show it's scarcity in a way. For and demand. So of a particular
prices are a communication tool. They tell people, hey, people really demand this. So if you're willing to take a risk economically and develop this product or retool toward a product, then you could have the reward of that benefit of people paying you higher than normal prices. Normal, I mean, as in the past 6 months, just an average, not that's what it has to be. And you get incentives for people to come and supply. If you don't have those, guess what? You have shortages. It's something that is an economic law. It's not something you can escape.
I hate that they can just do it by unilateral decree, just end so many people's livelihoods just overnight. And some of these people are just looking on the TV. Maybe they aren't even connected on Facebook. So they might even get the news late. They might even just hear oh, did you hear? You're out of a job. We're closed for 2-3 weeks now just by decree. What? Because they work 60 hours or something, right? And they're old, and then they're getting close. They thought they were going to retire soon, and they just don't even check their phone because they're just not plugged into social media or whatever, and they just get that surprise. It's just terrible what's happening. And I just hate that it can just be done just like that, by people who make over $170,000.
Are you talking about Congress?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 174,000 a year.
Yeah. But I'm just as an example. But it's these people write laws, and most of them are laws to make you less free and to line their own pockets and to make them the winners, their businesses, their friends.
That's
in
right.
The market winners over you, while they kill you with inflation, they kill you with income tax, they kill you with not letting you have medicine and throwing you in prison for you, or raiding your house.
Right.
Killing your dog, your child, in some cases you.
Throw you in jail for being homeless and out of curfew.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Someone said the Second American Revolution has been overdue for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they might get it.
You go
if this
back?
things go, it's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but if this
I'm sure there's
bill
many.
goes through, I'm not. I mean, it could be going through as we speak. I don't know, but if it goes through, I mean, as it is with what's in it, last I checked, I did scan it. I actually opened up the document. It's a long one, as usual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about permanent damage, like that next level permanent damage to the economy in terms of shrinking purchasing power. And
I've been having to say goodbye to those bubbles I miss.
yeah.
I already said goodbye.
So, well, yeah. Now you have the home pho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Well, there's a lot of great private market. There's a lot of great private market phos out there.
well, it will be really interesting. As I said, my hope and something that hasn't happened, as like more so than ever before. Technology has advanced so much, and depending where you are, you can still be relatively free. Even people in China, they use VPNs to connect to the outside world. There are people in China who use the internet and access places they're not supposed to, but they just do it through a VPN, you know? And they're leveraging technology to be free. Or like I learned from an interview I had with someone on Minds. I think I forgot what it's called. Something about.
Censorship sucks.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say censorship sucks. Yeah.
Mhm.
But he said that the Vietnamese government was like censoring people on Facebook, I think, or worked with Facebook to
Mhm.
censor.
Oh, definitely, because they have speech laws, and you can get
Yeah.
arrested there for talking against the government. It's sick.
So he told me like one day he noticed tons of Vietnamese people suddenly had like boosted posts. And he
Yeah.
was like, I don't even know what they're saying, but it's awesome. So I just thought that was really cool. And I was like, wow, that's an example of like totally different language. I mean, for me, I know it a little bit, but I'm more familiar with the culture. But and I kind of understand. Barely, not really. And but still, it's just fascinating that freedom is just universal. Like that's just what I realized and why I'm a voluntarist is just that basic truth is like you didn't choose where you were born, who you were born from, who your parents were, what your government was, or like the laws of the world. You really had no say. You're just kind of alive one day and became conscious, and then you were like, all right, what's going on? And you had to figure everything out. But that's like everybody. And there are those left that aren't super corrupt and psychotic or sociopathic or psychopathic, like a lot of those in power, you know um and those are the people like you guys, a lot of you guys who are just want to be free. You just want to be left alone. You want to live in peace. You're curious about the human experience. You're fascinated in some cases by consciousness and what it means to be alive. And you're looking for other peaceful individuals, and to just make a even more beautiful world with. And most people want to leave behind something good for their children, for their offspring, for just anyone they care about, their friends, their family, and their kids. And, leave behind and continue growing a peaceful world for humans, as has been done before you by different, you could say, libertarian minded people over time. And, you know, so it really is just a battle right now. I'm kind of ranting, but it's all things that I really care about and hope that people will see during this time. Just the nature of the state and that they're just a hindrance more than anything when it is, totally based on coercion. It's the coercion by default that's the problem. Let's just not have violence and coercion by default. That that's it. you know. So
Real.
oh,
real. So yeah. So if you haven't already, might be a good time to prepare and get some of that food. Maybe get some ammo. Maybe get some guns. Maybe get some Hawaiian shirts.
9mm was the
Maybe
most
get some
popular.
instant pho.
Oh.
Maybe get some TP. And definitely use your Trump checks for some more guns.
I'd also say, grow your community. Get your family and your crew, your local crew, your online crew, anywhere, on Signal, and or just like look up different end-to-end encryption platforms and be serious about that, because you don't know when things could happen, and have backup ways of communication. Like, in all seriousness, for those especially who've studied anything about governments and what different governments have done throughout history, and all the violence and the murders and the pillaging and the rapes in some cases.
The rapes.
The rapes.
Oh, man.
But seriously, like, let's invest in that. Okay, like, I hope a lot of you have nest eggs built up, or at least a backup and some supplies. But if not, that you're in a position where you're super incentivized for this digital economy to work, in this private, free world where you can trade freely, where there isn't someone watching you and telling you whether or not you're even allowed to trade that apple for that orange. I don't know. Like, because orange is not $1 and it's not like, money. I don't know. Like, whatever stupid rule. Like, you should be free of all of that and be free to trade, as long as you're not harming anybody. You should be free to trade and produce and whatever. So I hope that, that's an outcome, and anyone who's in that position, yeah, I hope that you can find a way. But yeah,
Do you know the way?
there's many ways, and people are fighting, people through the traditional, like, or the political system, legal system. But some, like, really trying to use this to educate people on what's happening, and what the government is doing. So I think that that's good. Like, when I looked up 6 trillion, it was trending on Twitter like yesterday.
Yeah.
And Peter Schiff was one of the top comments. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like,
he's not a fan of crypto, but he does know when that market's going to tank. So there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a fun couple months, to say the least, and then it's not going to be a fun couple of years after that. So, especially with all these gun grabbers, right? They're like trying to, in every single possible avenue, close down stores. And I remember hearing about how there was the mayor of New Orleans was trying to do the Katrina thing again, and stop all firearms transportation sales. I mean, they're just doing everything they can to implement tyranny. It's it really is setting a precedent that it really shows, I think, whoever's in power, that all I have to do is say, oh, virus, hey, we can control your lives now. We can control your businesses. We can stop you from assembling. We can choose who can work, who's essential or non-essential. We can shut everything down. I think it's set a very dangerous precedent. And I think that if people don't, sue over this and fight it tooth and nail, what's been done this time, there will be nothing to stop it. Because coronavirus, I mean, yes, it is serious. Lots of people have died and this or that. I get it. But in terms of the actual relative risk compared to all different things that have happened in the past,
it's just always
20
compared
years.
to what, as you're saying,
right?
And compared to what the government is doing now,
the government can very easily reinstitute this again for what coronavirus is in terms of the sicknesses and deaths. Like this is not very big. This is not zombie apocalypse. This is not World War III. For them to do all this stuff that is like literally practically martial law without actually saying the words. They're like trying to do everything they can without saying the words martial law, but it's literally almost there in all practical intents and purposes. They're going to have unlimited power because they just have proved the point to themselves. Oh, look, we could say virus and hey, there we go. Boom. We can do whatever we want now. Virus, Constitution rights. What are those? Virus. It's a virus. It's a virus. We're going to take your guns. So, you know what I mean? That's what
the argument right now is just like, oh, but it's an emergency. Like
Right.
principles, economics, everything that you ever learn, laws about trade and human action, like just out the window because it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, and that's what is the phrase that they add. And depending who you ask, like an emergency can be different. Like it just depends. But
Well,
they
when the government can make the
collectivize
emergency.
emergency.
Right.
And yeah, you know, Corona doesn't affect everyone equally. And again, there's different value judgments because some people, if they really all they have is that particular job and that's the best they got, they are going to value doing that and surviving with the risk of, okay, maybe I might get corona, but they might be extra cautious and wash their hands and wear gloves and not touch their eyes or anything, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. But the one thing that I will take away from this is that everybody's going to be a lot cleaner now with how I was already, you know, I didn't want to shake hands before. And now everybody, you know, I'm like, okay, good. Finally, I have an excuse to say, no, I'm good. I don't need to shake hands. I was already, you know, hypochondriac.
That is so true.
I was already washing my hands before it was cool. So
that is so
now
true.
It's normalized.
Wow, it is.
Now you can all join me.
Wow, I just had that epiphany.
Hand washing.
It was so normal. I like totally just like got used to it and like I'm like, yeah, but you're right. I just remember thinking at the beginning, just like, wow, like you're extra careful of what you touch.
Yep.
Wiping everything.
Because I know I'm like, that's how it happens. A lot of people don't get this, but it's like usually it goes from hand to either nose, mouth, or inner ear. You keep touching stuff and you go to touch one of those areas, and that's how you're getting sick. Because the virus, you know, by and large, nothing's going to penetrate the thickness of your skin. You know what I mean?
I don't want to touch anything
unless you have a cut or something. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's not coming through that way, right? Your skin is a huge barrier, lipid barrier. For all you 7th grade science enthusiasts. Yes, facts.
Someone said NWO. Yes. Wave.
But it's, you know, it's those areas, those open orifices where these things come in. So I'm like always was conscious about that, and like to the point where people are like, oh, you have OCD. I'm like, I did as a kid, not anymore. But now it's like, now you are thinking that's okay. I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I can blend in. But
and all these CEOs like quitting right before.
Yeah, that's another case, right? Tank. All the people who were quitting early and they knew
Bill
it was
Gates got off the board.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think I forgot what he was doing. He's like, yeah, I'm doing more like charitable things.
Philanthropy.
Okay. Philanthropy, huh?
Philanthropy projects.
Trying to get more people vaccinated and tracked.
We need to get more vaccines, guys. Yeah. Man, Bill Gates, what happened?
I don't know. That would be interesting to talk. I mean, he comes from a family that was into eugenics. Like his mom was really big in eugenics and stuff. So I'm not like surprised.
That's the precedent.
Yeah, but you know,
I brought in the era of PCs. But,
yeah. And then, oh my gosh, like vaccines, right? With this virus, like whatever vaccine they're going to come up with, I would never take. Because I mean, I'm not like a huge vaccinate for every single thing fan. I'm like, okay, if it's a serious something. Yeah, but like, you know, giving vaccines where it's like, okay, Hep B to like a newborn, it's like, okay, the mother's not like a crack addict and the kid's not being sold into sex slavery, so you don't need Hep B as a newborn, right? Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff. So the testing on whatever vaccine's gonna be out is gonna be so crap, and then they're gonna like mass, you know, produce it at like a crazy rapid rate, and they haven't really, you know, tested it all just to see, hey, you know, is this going to be good or not? Is there any possible effects?
I'd rather take the risk of like,
I'm good,
just minimizing my chances of getting it by avoiding people, you know, choosing to mostly be inside or just getting sun and avoiding people, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the way, I'd rather do that than like go to a place and then like risk the person not like, you know, cleaning the needle or them injuring me or whatever. Like, you know, I just subjectively value a different experience with my life. And that's how I choose to live it. And I just think it's so wrong. And I do foresee, and there's already talks of forcible vaccinations.
Right. Like there were some courts that like put in their orders, we are only taking things, and then like in it is like mandatory vaccination hearings. Like what? I'm like,
oh.
Yeah, there's like Volusia County and some other, I don't know if I forgot who it was, but I saw it in their like orders of like courts starting to write, you know, what it is that they're willing to accept for cases, only the most emergency things. But I'm like, okay, where'd that mandatory vaccination come from? Because it's kind of like weird because, you know what I mean? Like the whole like, concept of mandatory vaccination is just, in that regard, is just a weird thing because it's like, you know, vaccines are just meant to stimulate your natural immunity. Like a lot of people don't get that in the mainstream. They're like, they think vaccines are themselves like some nanotechnology that goes and like, you know, macrophages the virus. And it's like, no,
That was a
it
really
literally,
funny, like, sound.
it's either a live, weakened, or part of a virus, or you know, a toxin, and you know, a toxin from the virus that gets injected to you, and then your body recognizes it, and then it produces extra, you know, white blood cells of various sorts, you know, helper T cells and other stuff. And if you watch Cells at Work, the anime, then you have an extra excellent education on the types of cells in the body. But yeah, I mean, it's like all it's doing is saying, hey, bump your immune system. It's like, okay, like, I mean, that's great and all, but it's like, you bump my immune system, but is that even to the exact virus? Because viruses, you know, mutate just like the flu does, and there's different strains and there's different efficacy rates. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like the vaccine is not a surefire magic bullet to like, you absolutely won't get something. You know what I mean? It's not like even in itself, it's not like an absolute bar to illness, especially if it's not the right strain, or you know, it wasn't strong enough to take on what you got. So I mean, to me, it's just wild. You know, it's not like a cure thing where it's like, oh yes, if you take this, you know, here's some penicillin or some other type of mold or whatever, and then it actually kills the bacteria, you know, as a comparative. You know, obviously that doesn't work on viruses, the bacteria stuff, but just the idea, like it's actually killing it. It's not like a cure. So it's just really is mind-boggling, the disconnect people have in the science realm and the efficacy and stuff like that. Always bothers me. So yeah. And that's why I say try for natural, healthy immunity as best as possible, because your first line of defense is taking care of your body. You know, good nutrition, taking care, exercise,
getting sun if you can, if it's not rainy,
increase
cloudy where you are,
right? Increase your white blood cells naturally.
Exercise, walk at least.
Yeah. Stab yourself with a dirty knife now, but like, yeah.
Go to an alleyway, grab a needle off someone who has AIDS.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that would not be a good idea.
Well,
don't do that. That's gonna hurt.
Well, anyway, so you know, there's that, and yeah, I agree, vitamin D, and I just think like education is key. Like, just stop trying to like be mean and control people, grandma. Stop like pointing guns at people's moms and dads and brothers and sisters and wives and husbands, and just leave people alone, you know, and do it based off property rights. Like, use your voice, you know, and just be like, ew, somebody went into my store, and like record them, and they like coughed all over my stuff, and then they left. Like, let's outcast this person.
Well, that happened. There was this like crazy woman.
Good. That's a good reaction. But notice how there's no violence. It's all about persuasion and exposing and utilizing the tools that continue to increase, especially the government gets the F out the way, will continue to get even better, like technology and the ability to share information really quickly. As already it's super fast. But,
well, there's already been like a market example. There's this one chain called Publix, and they have like this senior morning, like you can come in early to the stores. So they have like an hour just for old people, so they can come in while the store is completely clean and fresh the night before and restocked. So they let the old people come in first, so they don't have to like, you know, be there with people who might spread it who are younger and stuff like that. So I mean, there's already like literal market solutions to these kinds of issues that have already arisen in the context, and it's cool to see like how these things can arise. Because the government didn't mandate, you know, oh, you must open early, like, you know what I mean, they did it on their own.
Question, is it 55 plus or 60 plus?
I can't remember what the age was, but elderly, I guess, whatever that means. I don't know how they test, but that makes me want to.
49-year-old, please.
Please, yeah.
They're like, please.
Oh, it'd be hilarious to like dress up. What if you like dressed up like an old person and like put on the makeup, like Johnny Knoxville did in Bad Grandpa? So you like dress up like that. You're like, I'm here for the senior early food. You got any of them toilet papers?
Talk about an offense that would be solved with outcasts.
Yeah. Oh my god, that'd be amazing, right? It's like market solutions. People like, all right, I'm gonna go buy an old person costume and like have a walker and pretend to be old to like get in and get the toilet paper. Like, thanks, honey, Thank you for the toilet paper.
The
Like-
evidence of at the trial, the lawyer's like, did you? We looked at your Amazon
Yeah.
history and we saw that you ordered a wig, a white gray wig.
Party
You
wants to
have an
do that just to
intention
just to see what would happen.
defraud? Yeah.
Where put on some
I don't know
makeup.
why they're from the South,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Ms. Doubtfire, right? Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh man.
You just like innocently grab toilet paper. That's all you do though.
Right.
And you just do all that effort to get toilet paper. Be really funny.
Yeah, and so it said, don't dismiss vaccines so early. I'm like, I don't dismiss vaccines. I just dismiss the idea
that's my
that
choice.
that someone should like just take the entire CDC schedule. That literally there's like so many different types of people and abilities to handle what's in there. You can't have one medical schedule for all people. Like it's just ridiculous. It'd be just as ridiculous to say everybody should eat peanuts, right? Well, what's going to happen? There's people with allergies. They're going to die. You know what I mean? There's people who will get sick because they eat peanuts. Yeah, sure. Most people can have peanuts, but there's going to be people who can't. The same thing with vaccines. Not everybody can handle the schedule as written by the CDC. Some people need more time between shots. Some people need a different schedule with fewer, of those vaccines and stuff like that. Some people are sensitive to some of the adjuvants. You really have to realize that they have a one-size-fits-all policy because they're so scared about herd immunity that they don't even want people to critically think about customization for themselves individually. Like that's the whole thing is they're like, oh no, we're worried that someone might not follow the schedule. So just tell everybody to take it all in this exact schedule. And that's everybody, despite, the fact that everybody knows no single person can have the exact same thing as everybody, right? For one person, a shot of whiskey can make them drunk. For another, it's like nothing. You know what I mean? Like one person can have one medication and they die. You know what I mean? It's like you can't have a one size fits all medical policy for a diverse population. It's insane. And of course, there's going to be fallout from that naturally. So,
yeah, it could just be the way I grew up, but
Yeah.
my family was more like growing up in Vietnam and Cambodia, and just at the time, and more just from a Chinese culture. In Chinese culture, there's a huge culture of like home remedies and just like having your body become stronger and building natural immunity. And so I just personally am used to that. The point is, it just shouldn't be decreed anyway unilaterally for all humans, for anybody. Like
Right.
you yourself should not have a say in what someone else puts in their body. You have a say who comes across your property and who's near you and all that, and who you associate it with, but that's it. And other people have that same right. And then, so
Yeah.
that's just all we're against. Just stop pointing guns at
No more
grandma.
force.
Should we make a song? Stop pointing guns at grandma. I don't know.
Yeah.
But seriously,
it's unfortunate that so many people have been told to just blindly trust every single person that claims to be an authority and not to just do some modicum of like basic research. Like, why should people be dumb? Yes, there's specialization needed for different things in terms of knowledge. You can't know it all, but there's nothing wrong with just taking some time to just look into whatever it is you're going to do, any activity of life. Just looking at what other people have said, comparing what different experts have said, just becoming basically familiar with the topic, a little bit, just that you understand the basics of whatever it is you're going to do for yourself. You know what I mean? Whether that's diet, exercise, nutrition, medicine, whatever. Like, it's just taking time to be like, okay, what am I doing to my body? Is this safe? Is this a good idea? Are there any concerns I have for myself, my personal dispositions? So, yeah.
Or listen to a bunch of people presenting arguments. At the very least, figure out how to think critically, like what constitutes an argument, reason, evidence, consistency, and just look for people who are really good at applying that critical thinking, and then just listen to different opinions of whatever the freak is going on, whether it's the economy, gold, crypto, or anything. Just look for a variety of opinions as well. Just both, and it's a really interesting time we live in. I was thinking this the other day that one of the defining aspects of the world we live in is part of survival is your ability to sift information, to sift through massive amounts of information for what is truth and falsehood and what is in the category of like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't really have enough to know here or whatever. So yeah, and it's just quite interesting, and because like never before has there been the ability to sift through massive amounts of information just at your fingertips, at any time. Most people had to like go somewhere, like physically get up, or like they painstakingly spent money on books and built their own collection at home, but they're limited, it's not new. They have to get new stuff, you know. So it's quite incredible, and I just think that's such an interesting feature, and we should just be aware of that in that this part of the human experience. Um, we also have the chance now too to, on that note of information, try to present and be part of that information spreading of what we think is truth and liberty and freedom, and what we think will spread peace and prosperity amongst humans. And let's do that, like spread services, offer value in the market, trade, you know specialize in things and then offer that, you name it, anything, like just continue being a great person in the market. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a business owner. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. I don't think it's wage slavery if you're there voluntarily and you truly, like your job or whatever and the people you work with. So, I just I think that we got to look at everything as it is, which is a bunch of human interactions. And if we can apply this philosophy of peace and nonviolence, things will work itself out. People will figure it out. People will figure out, individuals, some will fail, some will succeed. And then hopefully those solutions that do succeed and are tested, get multiplied. But you got to give people the freedom to take those risks. Central planning is just horrible because when the central planners fail, now you just reallocated everyone's resources and there was no other opportunity. If you had one company, even if it was like a huge company like Amazon, just like they chose to devote all their resources to like whatever, and it, building toilet paper, and it just failed. I don't know. At least that's just their loss, and they didn't force everybody else. And meanwhile, while they were doing that, other people experimented and found something better. So, yeah, I just I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of despair, but at the same time, compared to what? I mean, things have been so bad for so long. As someone said, we've been overdue for an American Revolution, and I agree. Like, but how far back does that go? Maybe it's just throughout history, there's just been tons of revolutions on different scales, different numbers of people aligned to the same purpose, But I think for the first time as well with the internet, there's so many more voluntarists, libertarians, anarchists ever.
Oh yeah.
The whole in the like
There's now 20
the
of
world. They're in this room.
them. And they're all watching right now.
Yeah. But it's just all around the world, just people, not even just volunteers, but just people who just want some kind of freedom, just at least agree about nonviolence and capitalism and trade, or limited government. But I'm just saying, like, those people exist, and it's because they got exposed to all these different philosophies and collections by different humans who recorded their thoughts and advocated for peace and liberty. So I think we can all contribute to it now more than ever, basically. Whether it's memes or some random article, you start a blog, or you start tweeting or anything, honestly, like it really can make a difference. Even just one person, you could be affecting their whole network of people, or and that's just one. That's like the minimal, So I think that we all can make a difference, and I'm hopeful for the future, despite being, also like worried. But I've been worried ever since I learned about the government, and just more and more, just realizing the nature of those in power, and those who've been in power for a long time, and whose families have been in power for a long time as well. It's like, okay, I get it. Time to keep trying to change minds.
Yep.
So
we'll keep
and preparing to defend,
updated and talking with people and hanging out as this
unfolds.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be wild, but we're working hard. Yeah. as you can see, we got 2 toilet paper rolls. We're gonna last for months. No. But
One
no,
sheet
we're
a
working
day.
on the Red Flag reality film stuff. Working on just sharing
I
what
really
we
like
find
going in
out.
studio.
Yeah, that was
I want to
fun.
keep doing
That
that.
was a lot of fun.
It was so cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it just, I didn't expect things to accelerate in terms of economic. I thought I could, despite the taxation, still be relatively productive and producing things, but this cuts off my legs. So
It's gonna cut off a lot more than legs. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. But we can take solace in the fact that
who is John Galt?
at least you'll get $350 in your Trump bucks.
Yeah,
that'll be the purchasing power of $1,200 by the time you get it.
That was 4,000.
Yeah, it'll be about $350 now. By the time you get it, it'll have $3.50 of purchasing power.
And in that, folks.
No, you gotta spend that quickly though. Seriously, I'm getting out of cash.
I hope people see, if they see that absurdity of 2,000 even, like, I hope they see it as it would be for like Andrew Yang, anyone who's voting for him. So, but I don't know. Some people still.
There's a threshold. There's a certain amount of money where it's like basically a tax break. But even then, it's like when you consider how much the government's otherwise spent in the Fed's actions, in the end, it's going to end up meaning nothing. So that ain't going to mean jack.
Especially if there's so many barriers to entry and making money anyway.
Right.
What is that?
Yeah. They're going to undermine whatever pittance they give the peasants.
It all goes
back.
To taxes, right?
Oh, it will.
Like you buy something, and that's just the cost.
It's going to taxes. It's your tax money coming back and then going back to taxes. It's going straight on back. We already know what's going to happen.
It hurts. All the wealth destroyed. I like what the Essential Freedom says. I'll buy ammo.
Yeah, buy that ammo. Buy that ammo. Buy that TP. Yeah. Get a little silver. Get a little gold. Get
ammo,
some seeds. Get some crypto.
People are talking about crypto, gold. Ammo
hide
can
your kids,
be a
hide
currency.
Your wife.
Think of ammo.
Oh, heck
easily, you can do. You can be like, here's some 9. Here's a 22.
I already got my spare.
22 is your cents. 9mm. Oh, that's a 223. Oh,
right, I'm doing
like 50 BMG.
223 for TP. I'll do 1,000 rounds a roll right now. I'll do 1,000 rounds for a roll. You hit me up. 1,000 rounds. That 223 for TP.
That's a lot.
This is gold right here. And we'll sign it. Well, you know what I mean. So it's an art piece. We're not price gouging. It's an art piece. So we'll sign it like that banana that was slapped on the wall. With a duct tape. It's an art piece. So you're paying for art.
Someone said,
I'll take that 223 for the
TP. Nathaniel said, who knows? Maybe Rand Paul might have infected some of the more problematic fellas in the Senate. I know a lot of the people in the Senate are old.
Yeah, we can only get so lucky.
I don't know.
We'll see. All right, take care, everybody, and we'll see you later.
And with that, all right, thank you, everyone. It was really fun. Bye. Stay